So tonight we are going to be working with the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra is represented by the color orange. I'm not sure if this looks orange to you, but it's a very orange shirt. So I wear the color, I'm trying to anyway, wear the color of the chakra because the more that you guys can see it, even digest it, right? So we talk about food. So orange things, right, would be carrots, whatever, oranges, right? So other orange foods, but like just having orange things around, like a pen, wearing orange clothes, and this is good for each chakra. So whatever color that represents that chakra that you're having trouble with would be good for that week or however long you're working with it, to really kind of see that color as much as possible. So that's why I'm wearing this tonight for you. So the sacral chakra it represents, which is very ironic, to me anyway, it represents trauma and it represents joy. So very two different things, right? They kind of repel each other. If you're having trauma, you don't really have joy. And if you have joy, you don't really have trauma. So this sacral chakra, which is located right above your pelvic bone, okay, in your lower abdomen area, it's really where your fertility is all, and it affects all of this stuff. And I'll tell you that in a second. But this is a really, really important one, because if you're lacking joy in your life, or you're having a lot of trauma, or you've been through a lot of trauma, and we're going to discuss like what trauma is, this chakra is really going to be affected. And I know personally, I held on to stuff in this chakra for years. I mean, we do in all of our chakras, but even knowing that it was there, knowing that I had to heal from it, but wasn't ready. Okay. And that's important to remember, is that sometimes we're just not ready. You can either push yourself, but if you come against a lot of resistance, sometimes you're just not ready. So I would work on different things and then kind of move back into this. But tonight we're going to dive deep. So make sure you have a notebook and a pen ready, because I'm going to ask you some questions to really identify where your sacral chakra is at with healing purposes. Okay. So if you have a balanced sacral chakra, you're going to feel like you can connect to people. You're going to feel like you can have deep, intimate relationships. You're not scared of them leaving you. You know, you're okay to show up as yourself and be yourself, and know that you'll just find the right people, right? So you have deep, intimate relationships. The other thing about the sacral chakra is if it's balanced, you might be able to get pregnant very easily. You also might be sexually active and be happy and abundant with that, instead of holding back in other ways. Okay. So if it's underactive, your sacral chakra, the things that can happen here is you might be very oversensitive. So think about this, right? If we have been, traumatized in our life, we can be oversensitive. We can be really, really hard on ourselves too, because we've been through so much trauma that it might've been our fault, and we take the blame on as our own. Okay. You can also have intimacy issues, and you can also have fertility issues. So these things are all located around the sacral chakra. So if you had a hard time getting pregnant, which was definitely me, that could be the sacral chakra as well. And then overactive is really about being too emotional, being too overwhelmed. This could be basically jealousy, right? Also kind of sexually addicted. And then this is a lot when we're dealing with toxic relationships and narcissistic people. A lot of narcissists are really good at sex. And then as codependents, or people seeking that validation outside of themselves, it's like we get addicted to that because we feel like that's love. And then of course, overactive sacral chakra can cause toxic relationships, because you're jealous, the fighting happens, the trauma happens. So this can all be stored. And especially if you've been sexually abused in the past, this chakra is where you're going to want to work on, because that's all stored there. Now, trauma, and let's just get clear with this, trauma is just a disturbing experience. So we use this word trauma, and I think we have this idea that it has to be this big thing, like maybe it's abuse or something like really crazy happened to us, but it doesn't have to be that. It is just it's a disturbing experience. So the way that I describe trauma is, if anything sticks with you, and like keeps going with you through the years of your life that you keep going back to, and I'm going to ask you about that in a minute, that's traumatic for you. Like, I remember my father just giving me a disappointed look on his face when I filed something in the wrong place. Is that a trauma? Not to what we think it is, but that sat with me, that disappointment in his face. Like, I was a disappointment. That was traumatic for me as a child. I was probably like 9 years old or something. And just that face alone has stuck with me. I can still remember it to this day. So let's get into this for you, because I want to be able to identify that trauma for you. So what I'd like you to do is kind of maybe just close your eyes for a second. And I want you to identify 3 or 4 events that are still sticking with you. If you think about your childhood, take a deep breath in there for me. I know this can be hard. But if I asked you to identify 4 events or 4 things that have happened to you in your past as a child, anywhere up to the ages of, say, like 13, 14, 15, maybe even getting out of high school, but even earlier on, if you can, what are they for you? 3 or 4 things or events that have happened that are just constantly sticking. This could be somebody saying something to you, somebody bullying you. This could be molestation. This could be sexual abuse. It could be your parents leaving, like whatever that is for you. Just going to give you a couple of minutes just to identify that for you. So 3 or 4 quote unquote traumatic events that are still sticking with you, that when I say that to you, you can like pull them up like that. So those events that you just identified are still the energy around those events. So the way I explain it is, those events that happened have an energy that is now stuck and trapped in your energy field. And this is going to be most likely your sacral chakra, because these were traumatic events for you. So that trauma is being stored in your sacral chakra. Now, when that stuff is stored there, it's going to deter you from having the happiness that you want, that joy in life, because we're held down by this heaviness of what we're carrying. And that is the heaviness of the energy of those events that you went through. So let's switch it over to joy. And I want to ask you, where in your life are you lacking joy? Is there certain areas? Is it overall joy? So go ahead and write that down in your journals, notebooks. So some examples of this could be like relationships. It could be work. It could be yourself. It could be spirituality. It could be finances. It can be a lot of different things for you. So just take a minute to think about that. All right. So when you have those answers, the next thing I want you to do really quick, and see if you can do this, and you might not be able to, but can you correlate the two? So wherever you're lacking joy in your life, can you see how that correlates into your trauma that you had? Does that make sense to you guys? Let me know. Thank you. So once you have that, now I want to go into this energy healing. So what we really want to do with the sacral chakra is we want to release that trauma that you've been through, because there's ways that you can't see that your trauma can actually be playing a part in your life right now. And a lot of the times as adults, like, we don't think that trauma was that bad, but as a child going through that, we internalize everything. So everything is about us. So when we go through that trauma, we make it about us, that there's something wrong with us, that we're not good enough, we can't be seen. There's all these different things that happen that hold us back from what we want to do now. So that joy. So let me ask a quick question before we move on. Is that joy that you're lacking? What do you think you need to change in your life to create that joy? Okay, and then once you have that answer, we're going to go ahead and do the energy healing. So the purpose of this is to release the trauma, the energy that's stored around that trauma in your energy field, to release that so that you can enjoy and have this joy in your life again. Because one way or the other, if you're suffering from trauma, the joy is going to, even if it doesn't relate, the joy is not going to be there because you're holding this heaviness. So the purpose of this is to release that energy and let go of that, because that trauma that you've had is no longer serving you and you're carrying it for so long, and it's time to put down that burden. It's time to let go of what has happened to you and to not internalize it, and to realize that you are lovable, you are good enough, and anything that was done to you, you did not deserve, and that it's okay to let it go and not keep holding on to it. So let's go ahead and get into the energy healing, and then we'll see how that goes. And especially with the answer that you just did on the last one, like, what do you need to do in order to have that joy in your life? Like, right? So it might be changing your mindset. It might be some action steps, like going for a new job, or having a conversation with somebody that you might need to say what you feel, or anything like that. So with the new moon coming in, we want to use those things that we just said in that last question to really kind of put your intentions out there to do whatever that was for you to create more joy. And for some of you, it's just release the trauma, right? So that you're not holding that heaviness. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a deep breath in. And go ahead and let it out. Okay, go ahead and give your shoulders a stretch here. Your back, stretch all the way from your fingers to your toes. And then go ahead and take another deep breath in. And let it out. And one more time, take a deep breath in. You're going to call in your angels, your spirit guides, your loved ones to be with you here tonight to help you release this trauma. Go ahead and let that breath out. And let's go ahead and take one more deep breath in. We're going to call Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael to be with us here tonight as well, to really help you release and heal what you've been holding on to for so long that no longer serves you. And go ahead and let that breath out. Okay, whatever thoughts come in, just let them come in and let them flow out. Here we go. Go ahead and take a deep breath in. And let it out. And take another deep breath in. And go ahead and let it out. Give your body a nice little stretch here. And then one more time, take a deep breath in. And then you can go ahead and let that out. So I hope you feel actually a little happier, a little bit more joyful maybe that you want to put a smile on your face and that you released some of this trauma that you've been holding on to for a really long time here. And just know that, again, that trauma has nothing to do with who you are. It's just something that you went through. And usually if it involves somebody else, you always have to be aware that, you know, they did these things to you based on their own insecurities and based upon, you know, their beliefs and how they were brought up. So it doesn't mean anything against you. Okay. It doesn't, you know, define who you are. It doesn't, you know, mean that you are a certain way. So whatever they said, there could be a million things that this could be. So I hope that that was helpful for you. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Made my yawn, then cry now. My body feels sore. Yeah. So there's a lot there to let go of. So you might have to do this a few times really to, you know, really get in there. And, you know, every time I say to do an energy healing, I usually go in with an intention. So if there is something specific that you want to heal, go in with that intention of healing it and knowing what chakra that it's located in. And it could be multiple chakras, which you'll learn through this, through all the ones that we're going through. But if you know which chakras to work on with what event it is that you want to heal, it's like a double power. It's very powerful. I wrote down that the traumas I've had are not my fault. Exactly. They're not your fault. They don't define you. Like, please be aware of that. They do not define you, especially people that have been abused sexually or physically. Like sometimes they internalize that and they feel as though it's their fault, but also that it means something about them. It does not mean anything about you. You get to be whoever you choose to be. It does not matter what has been done to you. You can still move forward and be who you truly are. That person, that thing, that event does not define you, and it does not define your future. It also does not define your past. You're a survivor of this trauma, and then use that to, you know, step into your power with that too. All right. So thank you so much for joining me. And I hope that, like I said, it's helpful. Please make sure that you're wearing orange, or, you know, you have orange around you, or eating orange things, but just like really put the color orange into your view if this is something that you are blocked with. And also, one thing that I did want to mention is that in your lower chakras, so the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus chakra, which we'll do next, when these chakras are blocked, it is very hard for the energy to flow up. Okay, so they get blocked, so the energy doesn't flow freely. So if you're trying to connect to your intuition or your psychic abilities, or even like set boundaries and have self-expression and really accept yourself, these chakras need to be worked with first, because that's when the energy will then flow upwards, and then it will hit all those other chakras. But we need to unblock them. That's why we start at the root, and we go to the sacral, and then we're going to go to the solar plexus and move onwards, okay, or upwards really. All right, so I hope that's helpful. I wish you much love,